learn how to train your mind. Your mind is your biggest opponent. It's because you can convince yourself out of a lot of things. You can really talk yourself out of some moves that you should have made because the lie is here. And if you don't have the will to train your mind, you'll get in positions where you're supposed to be great, but your mental conditioning hasn't been proper and you're falling apart. And I would just say, train your mind and cleanse your heart, because it's not enough to be smart and to be pure here and not pure here, because everything's tied to how you care for people.
Welcome everybody to episode 17 of the Paul and Pals podcast. I'm your host, Ponyboy Paul, and Paul and Pals is a podcast where I interview my creative pals to learn how they became who they are today to inspire you for tomorrow. First off, I want to wish you all a happy new year. Thank you for joining and coming back. To all my new listeners, watchers, I appreciate you as well. On this episode, I have a creative conversation with my pal, JB Armstrong. JB is a director, writer, cinematographer, just overall storyteller. And in this episode, he kind of tells us how he actually landed in cinematography because it wasn't his first option. He tells us how he became the CEO of not one, but two companies. And finally, we kind of really get into how he finally learned to appreciate who he is and train his mind. And this is one of my longest episodes so far, but it's definitely worth it. So I hope you guys are able to tune in. Maybe you have to break it down and come back if something really speaks to you. But I was definitely inspired by this episode, and I hope it inspires you and motivates you to get creative. Also, I want to announce for those that don't know that I've also dropped a newsletter that will now be accompanying every episode that comes out. So every other Monday, you guys can subscribe, link in bio, link in the show notes. And basically the newsletters for those that aren't able to really, tune into social media, sometimes catch it live, or maybe you're kind of too busy to go and listen to an hour-long podcast. The newsletter basically just kind of breaks down my takes from the episode. I also have the links if you guys do want to go listen, do want to watch it. So if you guys want me in your email inbox every other Monday, just feel free to sign up, and I promise not to spam you. Yo, what's good, my guy?
Here. What's good, G?
Hey, welcome, man. Welcome. Happy New Year. How you feeling, bro?
Feeling great, man. Happy New Year to you, brother. Thank you for having me here.
It's good, man. I mean, it's actually been a minute, and I remember when I hit you up and I was like, "Yo, I want to do this thing. I want to hit you up," and you were like, "Yo, I'm honored." I felt like, damn, like I thought I was gonna be like, "Oh, I'm busy. I got some shit to do," but you was like about it the moment I said it. So I'm really appreciating you wanting to be here. And I think what I always like to do, what I like to start with, is to kind of give everybody a background of like how we know each other, how we're actually pals. And for those that don't know, I actually used to be a part of the Michigan marching band back in the day. And I came in there thinking I was sweet, that I could play, trying to be on my Nick Cannon shit. And I came in and I realized quickly, a big mistake. But no, you were one of the symbolists there at the university. I mean, obviously, you work with each other every day. You were really dope. So,
shout out to George. Go Blue, baby. That's right.
Go Blue. Shout out.
Appreciate you stopping by, George.
Shout out Chuck Ricotta too, bro. And yeah, so legend. I think that's really how we got to know each other. I think over there we kind of just stayed in touch, obviously, because of social media. So I just wanted to ask and start with, first of all, how are you doing? How is this new year treating you?
I'm doing great. I'm blessed beyond measure, to be honest. Despite loss and the situations that we're in and we find ourselves facing, God has been good. So I can't really complain. Gotcha. I really can't. And that's really, really it. I, steady working on making sure I'm hitting my vision marks, what we're trying to do as far as the company goes. And I know we'll dig into that a bit later, but the year just started off fantastic. I was surrounded by friends and family down here in LA. Although a lot of my friends and people are back home, miss me and I miss them. It's been really a hard transition, because typically I would go home and fly back home and see everybody. Yeah. But it was a bit tough, but nonetheless, I've just been afforded a great opportunity to still be surrounded by love and a great support system here. So it's been off to a great start so far for me. That's good to hear, bro.
And let's start there. Like, where exactly are you from? Born and raised, all that.
So born and raised Detroit, Michigan. 27 years. Yeah. I was born and raised there. I think I graduated high school 2010. Went to South Lake High School. That's over in East Point. Gotcha. But grew up over 7 Mile and Ryan was the neighborhood that I was growing up in at the time. But I was shuttled back and forth to private school Um, so early on, I was from the streets of Detroit, but had an opportunity to go to private school, preschool through 5th grade, and then
Oh
public
wow.
schools. Yeah, so like that gave me a sense of different perspective on how education works from that perspective, because
Yeah.
we're wearing uniforms, and I'm the only black kid out of what, 3.
Damn.
So early on, you start to see the differences between growing up
Yeah.
in a city that is Metro Detroit, yet
You were kind of.
across the street you go to Royal Oak and it's white suburbia, and
Yeah.
it's a different type of upbringing. And so that's kind of how I started. And then after Southlake High School, got to the University of Michigan, which was a blessing. The U of M taught me a lot. I'm grateful for the abilities and the opportunities that they gave me, just by connection alone. People used to say that you're actually graduating with a body of people that can help you, and I thought that was cap. I used to be like, man, what? It's not these people. How could they really help me?
Yeah.
It's really about my hustle and my degree alone and what I learned. But truly, even in this moment, you and I, it's the connection. Like we forged a relationship there. So I'm thankful to have that opportunity. I've come from the University of Michigan. So it's kind of a roundabout way of how I got up into cinematography and what I do now. It's through kind of growing up in this different landscape of places, and kind of internalizing those visually, and then determining how do I want to tell these stories.
Got you.
So,
and I kind of want to go back to the private school, because that's something I wasn't aware of, and like you never think about that too much when you think about Detroit. So I wanted to ask you, like, when you were first growing up in that environment, were you aware that it wasn't that norm, or were you kind of like, oh, this is just life? Like, how was that experience for you?
I consider myself pretty sharp when I was a kid, so I knew that this was life, but it also wasn't normal life. Like there was a bit of it that was, I don't want to say sheltered, but there was a clear difference just from, and so when I would go back home during the times I was being, educated privately, my speech was the talk of the town, because they would say, damn, boy, you talking white? White than a motherfucker, like anything, and just so you get those kind of codes early on. You're kind of like, what does that mean? And so, and then you go back across the, same way, and then you're talking the way you talk back home, and they're like, what? That's they're interested. They're like, what is
okay?
But so and you're always kind of, I don't want to say torn, but it is this dance or this code switching of sorts.
Got you.
Even early that you're learning, like, I can't talk the same way. And not that you feel afraid to, but it's like they don't get it. And so it makes you kind of feel uncomfortable. And so nonetheless, I was able to kind of conquer those fears and kind of work through that and still be myself. I had a great support system, my family, my mom and my dad, definitely encouraged me to still be strong in everything, like stand up for who you were and who you are and embrace it, but also learn to tailor it. You don't always have to wear it on your sleeve. And so I was always able to kind of go in and out and be able to understand the micro energies of how people interact with each other in speech, but still be able to feel liberated in that and not feel like I had to cater to someone's intentions.
Got you.
So
that's interesting you learned that so young, because I think it's something you might deal with when, let's say you're the person that's outperforming people or you're doing really well in school, and people might feel away because they might judge your background. And it seemed like you were able to kind of catch on to that. So I wanted to know, how did that kind of influence going into high school and maybe even more college? Like, did you already have in mind what you wanted to do, or did you kind of feel like you were still kind of searching?
Well, we'll start from the transition going into high school and then to college, because I think that's important, because I don't think I got a chance to understand what I wanted to do until my mother gave me an opportunity to go to a trial and advocacy program in Boston. I wanted to be a lawyer. So by the time I was in 10th grade going into 11th, I knew I wanted to do something with law. Like that was my focus. I wanted to be a lawyer, specifically a district attorney. So like I had this ambition to go to U of M for their law program. Obviously they have one of the top programs in the world. And so she gave me a chance to go to Boston, which was like this 2-week program. Again, one of my first chances of actually traveling alone, which then builds to a later story of my progression and kind of just discovering myself. So I'm away, just discovering this art of trial and law. And I was pretty good at it. Like I won a couple of awards from it, so to speak. So when I got back, I was like, I want to be a lawyer. And so, again, I understood that there was a barrier, color wise and just physically of getting to that realm. You have to be you have to be above exceptional. So I knew I had a different level of caliber of work that I had to achieve. And so that goes back to early on in elementary. I knew that my blackness made me stand out. And so not only people are watching, so that means I have to tailor my intentions and my decisions a bit way that are exceptional, if not even more. And so you take that from elementary and you're in high school and you're like, I want to be a lawyer. Now I'm taking AP courses. I'm doing the work, I'm getting the A's and working hard because I know my next level is this. And so understanding how to balance the language of your color in a space where sometimes you don't necessarily feel like it's able to was hard because it's a new experience. And so I got to college and I'm like, this is what I wanted to do, get to graduation. And by the time I get accepted to Michigan, I know I'm going to law. I'm like, this is it. This is what no.
You took a big switch, bro.
10th grade, sophomore year, I have a mental breakdown, like completely. I'm at the Wendy's at the Union. Like in the corner. I think I was like political science. I was double majoring in philosophy and music. Like obviously marching band made sense. Because I loved music at the time and I still do nonetheless. But again, my path was law. So I was like, this is what I want to do. But it's important to make sure that in these spaces where you're trying to understand how to navigate other people's intentions, you have to get back to understanding what are your intentions. Because by the time I got to high school, I was so comfortable with trying to appease everybody else for the standards that they expected me to have that I thought law was where it was. And I have put on the front. I'm in it for the money. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be paid. Like, black lawyer, he's smart, handsome. Who couldn't beat it? But when you find yourself really at a crossroad of faith and a crossroad of life, God finds you and he speaks to you. And I had a mental breakdown at that Wendy's and I was like, this is not what I wanted to do. Like my course load was heavy. I hated the reading. I hated reading. I was like, if this is what lawyers do, I don't want to do this. And no offense to my lawyer buddies and people who are in law, because I do think it's, more power to you because it's a awesome experience and an awesome career to be in. Justice alone, I love it. And so it just wasn't for me. And I'll never forget this. I called my aunt on my dad's side and I said, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. I'm crying on the phone. Like, I have no clue. I'm at the school. Tuition's high. Like, I'm already feeling, again, like another outcast. You want to go back to the elementary basis of understanding being a statistic among people where you're the minority, literally. You go to Michigan, and I'm easily 10 of 500 in a lecture hall. You can attest to that. Like, there are times where it's like, there's not many of us here. And so you get to a space where you don't necessarily feel like yourself. You're not in the right career path. You hate the workload, and you also don't necessarily fit in. It's like you become overwhelmed. And I really, truly believe in understanding what's best for you. Because my aunt told me, she said, you have to wake up every day loving what you do. Whatever it is that you decide to do when you graduate from here and whatever degree it is or whatever, you have to wake up every single day saying, I love what I do when I wake up. And I'll never forget those words because they soothed me in a way that really allowed me to understand what it meant to be introspective and say, what is it that JB needs? And I think a lot of times when we're trying to navigate spaces where we are trying to be successful or achieve something great, we let our ego get the best of us and we're not listening to what's best for just the internal self. We're chasing the high of the claps from everybody else. But are you satisfying what's internally saying this isn't right? And early on, I was able to get that from her, and I realized that law wasn't it. And through high school, I was great at art. Like I was a great drawer. I loved acrylic paint. Like that was my medium. And something told me just to try out for the art school, or just submit your portfolio.
Yeah.
And I got accepted on the spot. And I was like, okay, this is the start of something new. So now I'm in the marching band. I'm meeting friends like you.
Hey.
Life's looking good. But again, another roadblock.
And this is all sophomore year in college, right?
Sophomore, junior year, right?
Okay.
So I'm quickly trying to find myself because I'm 2 years in on pre-law.
Yeah, you got to graduate.
I got to graduate. So I'm like, dude, what is going on?
Yeah.
So, during this time, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of trial and error. And you find yourself just really picking up some pieces like, okay, man, damn, what's next? Okay, this didn't work. No one knew this. Like I was doing my thing, but I was also looking at the bigger picture. And still trying to play catch up. Yeah. So get to art and design. I'm accepted. They're doing a lot of things based in 2D medium and, stuff that I'm familiar with, but it's not hitting. Like, this isn't for me. Like, this is real, Tim the Toolman Taylor type. I'm not really, this artsy. Isn't me. It's too artsy. I'm like, okay. I'm like,
so this ain't it.
Granted, I learned a lot of great skills, like hands-on skills and things about thinking technical and critically about projects and approaching them from a place of saying, now, if I think about this holistically, just from vision, how do I get this to tangible? Because sometimes you are sculpting, like we are cutting wood and building things, and we're literally welding things, like part of getting an A, like you have to build things. And so that really helped me understand from taking, your vision from paper into something that you can bring to life with your hands. And I think that helped play a part later into my storytelling abilities that I'll get to in a minute. But so I'm at art and design, hitting all these, again, prerequisites. So I've missed some from being in pre-law. So now I'm taking all these prereqs for art and design.
Yeah.
So I get to this sophomore review, which is this thing that they do to review all of the sophomores. Now, technically, I'm a junior, but I'm a sophomore in the school.
Yeah.
Because of grades. Yeah, I'm behind. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to pass this sophomore review in order to move to the next level.
Yeah.
I get to this review, they dog me. They dog me so bad I left crying. Them teachers dogged me so bad I left the review like,
they say your shit is trash.
But at the time I was transitioning, so I hadn't taken technically the classes necessary to showcase what I needed for the review. But I had told them, hey, this is my trajectory. Like, this is what I want to do. It was laid out. Like, I sent it to a couple of other teachers. It was like, this is decent. Man, they whooped my ass. And I just felt so defeated. I remember it vividly. I felt so defeated and was like, how many more mistakes can I make? How many more wrong moves can I take? Mm-hmm. But God always has a plan, because that led me to other things. So I was like, they said, either you take the review again at a later date, we suspend you, or it was some crazy options.
Yeah.
All I knew was I wasn't staying in art and design.
Yeah. Because
there was no reciprocation of love to no level. Like, just to understand as a student, like where I was coming from and the position I was in. But I knew that God had a bigger purpose for me. I knew what my heart was saying. So I knew you got to take this one to the chin and keep it pushing. What's next? So art and design gave me an opportunity to start looking at visual effects. At the time, I was starting into my storytelling by taking a documentary photography class with David Turnley, one of the best teachers that I ever had. He Pulitzer Prize winner. Who for all of those who don't know him, they should definitely look him up. I don't want to spend too much on time on him, but a lot of the great pictures that we've seen of our generation, he's taken. And I had a great opportunity to take a class with him, and it blew my mind. He gave me a real chance to understand the language of photography. And that's where my creative endeavors came from, because it allowed me to get behind a lens. And so I'll double back to the visual effects side, because I was taking both at the same time. I was interested in the artistic side of animation. I was doing like 3D modeling with Maya and 3ds Max and ZBrush. Like, I was into it. Like, this is lit. Like, again, when I want to achieve something, I put my all into it.
Yeah,
Like, if I really want, so my focus was animation, 3D modeling. I was into it, studying all night. I remember being in the dude to like 4, 5, 6 a.m. just consuming animation, like nights and days, and would just get out of there feeling so lethargic and like sunlight. So for a while I was on visual effects, and again it gave me a high, but it wasn't hitting. So I'm like, where else can I go?
Back to Wendy's.
You know. But it's funny. That's a great thing to note. It's because high key, I had to keep reminding myself back to Wendy's, back to that moment of clarity that says, what can you do every day that you love doing? Mm-hmm. And visual effects got me into storytelling for movie and cinema, because we're building content to show on screen. Yeah. And so I was like, hold up, there's something here. The art of starting, or the inception of the story, started capturing my interest. Like, when we get to the visual effects, something has already taken place prior to us getting to the visual effects. What is that about? So I really started going back to the movies that I've watched. Like, I've always watched movies all my life, but I never took a step or an approach to it of, how are these things created? Right. Who gives life to these things? And so that's really when visual effects and then documentary photography merged, because David really got me out of my comfort zone of going to places that I frankly had no business being into. Like, one assignment was, go to a religious institution that you've never been to, that you know nothing of, and go document photos. And you need to have a series of photos done or you fail. What? Like, off the strength of just the power of taking creative control over things. And so it really got you moving, because it's like, I might fail if I don't do what I need to do. Mm-hmm. But it also gave you a sense of urgency and a sense of out of placement. It gave me a refreshing mindset, because it places you in a position to say, I don't know none of these people. I don't know where I'm at, but you're asking me to then photograph and capture what I think your post said, the essence of the human spirit. Yeah. That's what I started gravitating towards, is how the narratives that we all come from. You know, me coming from an elementary background, and this tale of two cities, essentially, from Detroit, and yet still in private school, and, you know, meeting you, and then marching band, and like, we all come with these emotional and mental, and we're beings, we're human beings, and there's so much to us. That's the power of cinema to me, and storytelling, because you pull from those, and you pull from those strings, and then you create these beautiful narratives. And so documentary photography got me really invested in those moments of just capturing someone's true intent. Gotcha. And the stillness of that, and the moment that it takes capture some. Was all this during
because I feel like you're getting to the point almost senior year at this point. All the shit you said, I've been back and forth. Baby. So when was this all that?
That's what I'm saying. This was technically junior, so I had to spend it. I did 5 years at Michigan. Gotcha. Because I had to catch up. That's what I'm saying. So this is just the tip: documentary photography and visual effects. Gotcha. So I merged the two and was like, "There's something here." Hence, long story short, I ended up at the Screen Arts and Cultures program, where I started learning writing and the art of storytelling and the power of words. You know, and navigating spaces where I was able to build worlds that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable in, and being able to talk from other people's tales and what they experience. You know, I would love hearing people talk, because it allowed me to really understand the different experiences that people go through. We are all not the same. And that's the beauty of how I approached and came into screen arts from those two backgrounds. Gotcha. And then I started really hitting my passion. Now I'm in the screen, I'm writing. Now I'm really taking more courses, because I have to graduate. And so now I'm like, some credits didn't carry over. Yeah. So this journey really took a long time, but it allowed me to really understand what I wanted. Because the mistakes weren't mistakes, they were lessons. And I was able to say, no. But I was able to then find it and be intentful when I found it. Gotcha. Now I have intent behind it. This is it, and I'm going to chase it. So now I'm taking 2-3 screenwriting classes, because I want to graduate with a screenwriting major, so that way I can really write. Yeah. That's where the magic of these stories come from, is that first inception of draft, oh man, that's a beautiful place. You know, and then you rewrite and you craft and you shape, you know, going back to art design. You know, I had to build things with my hands. You know, when we were sculpting these wooden pieces, I had to draw back on that when I'm writing these stories. How do I visualize this? How do I make these words come together and articulate something wholesome that people can feel and really latch onto? Yeah. And so God had to reveal to me that, boy, the things that you call mistakes, I was just preparing you for. And so now I'm pulling on all of this critical thinking and I'm able to then breathe in screenwriting.
That's crazy.
And that's how I got there.
Yeah.
To that point, at least.
And I know that's only a little bit of your story. We're going to get into more. And I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me from that is you were willing to actually realize, okay, this major or whatever isn't for me, and switch it up. And I think that's very different from a lot of people I knew in college, even myself, because there was a point, because I graduated mechanical and engineering, and I got to a point where like, man, I really ain't feeling this. I think it's probably like sophomore year. But I wasn't like, man, I can't just switch it up. That was my thinking, right? Right. So I want to know, with you, how are you so comfortable, or how are you so, I can switch it up and be okay? Were you not worried about maybe your finances or maybe your timing? Like, what was that confidence coming from?
Man, that's a great question. I'd be lying if I said anybody else than God in Christ, because he kept reminding me that I have you, because I'm able to then make those decisions. And the more we'll talk, the more I'll share those moments in which to other people it sounded insane and it sounded crazy, but once it came to pass, it wasn't anymore. And so I think people have to get to a place where they feel comfortable making decisions that are the best for them. I think when you determine what's best for you through finances, you're feeding wrong intention. I think when you determine things and that's not to say don't think about what it could cost you. That's not what I'm saying. That's always a fact. I'm saying be intentional about what it could cost you. There was never an instance where I made a decision and didn't do my homework behind what would it cost me to move. So like, I knew what credits would or wouldn't transfer before transferring. I went to go talk to one of my great teachers of all time there, Terry Saris, bless her heart, I love her genuinely, who really guided me through how to allocate certain credits to make sure they met other demands, so that way I could actually graduate on time. So what I'm saying is to make sure that you move with proper direction. I always prayed about it too. I always said, you know, God, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? You see where my heart is. I'm unhappy. Help me, guide me and every time it was guided. And so I think you have to come to a place where you say, for my heart, this isn't right. And I think when you make decisions based on what's best for your heart, everything else has to line up, because you're built to be a conqueror. We're all built to be strong. We're all built to be endurers. We're all built to be much more than I think what we see naturally when we look in the mirror, when we're faced with opposition in our finances. Sure. We're built so much more to be bigger than our circumstance. And I think we sometimes let our circumstances outweigh what's best for our heart. Because like you said, you felt that, but something inside of you was like, nah, don't do it. But what happens if you would have done it? You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And I think we get locked in our brain so much of saying, it feels too right, so I'm not going to do it because I'm scared of what else. And so I had to be scared of what else was coming. I had to, because I knew what was on the other side had to be greater. And so that's just through faith. And God has to give me that confidence and that strength, because nothing else was by my own. I'd be like, I'm not doing this. Like you said, I have an agenda. I'm gonna be a lawyer. Money. Let me get this. Let me get in and out of here. But I knew there was bigger purpose. And it was driving me insane not to lock into that. It was literally, you saw the breakdown I just gave. And so it was inner strength. And I think I say that with so much confidence, knowing that other people can find it. Yeah, no, I love that. Inner strength helped me really say, this isn't for you. Find a way to make it better for yourself.
No, I love that, because honestly, what you just described is the essence of this whole show, this whole podcast, is because luckily you were able to find that and move on with it in college. Right? And for me, it kind of came within this 2019, 2018 time, because it wasn't that I was unhappy. I was sad every day. It was just, man, I feel like I want to do this, but I'm scared. I'm unsure. I don't know what's going to happen. And I got to a point I'm not gonna know what happens till I try it, and it's been able to be something. You know, I don't know what it's gonna be. I have an idea, but I think I want everybody to be comfortable. And even though I focus on creative conversations, it can be anything that you really want to do, anything that you feel like. So I'm glad you're able to express that and you're living that. And I want to continue on your story now that hopefully you graduate. I don't know what year we at, bro. Like, you went back to Wendy's one more time. Like,
no.
Yeah.
So just quickly graduation's coming.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm locked in as a writer. I know what I want to do. I want to create. I want to build these worlds that Black people aren't necessarily afforded. I grew up a nerd. You know, Star Wars is my love child. Reservoir Dogs is also one of my favorite movies. Like, so these worlds where Kill Bill, I love the regalness in it, yet the outer worldness that also came with it, the strangeness that you also were gravitating towards. And so, you know, Steven Spielberg was somebody who was a big influence. And so I was like, these are worlds where I want to see more Black and brown faces that don't have to be coded in struggle. So I'm building this idea of who I am as a director and a writer, but I have to graduate. No one's hiring director writers out of school.
Yeah.
And so the last year or so, I was focused on editing. Like, that was my bread and butter. Bam, bam, bam. And what I came to realize was editing was in tandem working with writing, because the script is the first part of the craft. And when you get to the editing room floor, that's the last. That's when all the pieces come together. And so how God works, he was having me work in both. And I became very integrated in the minutia of the nuance of the details of character and setup and payoff and what that really truly meant, and how when we get gravitated towards that in good shows, what is that about? What is that sauce that they're doing? That's what I started paying attention to. And so that editing potential allowed me to get into places like Vice. So I graduated 5 years later, graduates. Yes, God is good. Woo! Finally graduate with my head a bit on straight, you know, and I come out to California. I'm like, that's where I want to be. It's opportunity. That's the fire. So I tap in, and it was a struggle. You know, that's a whole, you know, chapter on its own. It was a struggle. And, but a blessing. You know, God gave me a real opportunity. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I had a job lined up. I left on a Friday. I had a job lined up that Monday through just faith and good power.
And this is with Vice?
This was with Vice.
Okay. So
I had reached out to somebody who graduated from the same program, who was an alumni. Again, we talked about graduating with the connection.
Go Blue.
I was tenacious. You know, I was chasing him. I'm like, hey man, look, I'm a great editor. Like, what's up? I'll be moving out there in 2 months. Yeah. This is what it is. He was like, you know, I appreciate your hustle. You know, hit me up when you're a bit closer to coming out here. Cool. Sure enough, a week before I was moving, I'm like, hey, I'm moving. What's up? And so
you were moving without any set plans in Cali.
All I had was a couch. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All I had is a couch and a dream and a true ambition and faith behind my intent. That it's all about intent and where your heart is. You know, that's why God asked us to make sure our hearts are clean and pure, because that allows us to then move properly. So I'm on this couch hustling, and so he's like, we got a gig for you. So I literally pack all of my stuff up in my Nissan Altima that I had, my 2006 Altima, packed it all up, like some totes into the car. The car was shipped and met me when I got there. So I had a whip. That was a blessing. Moved my totes into my cousin's apartment and slept on his couch. And whipped to Vice, you know, and got a taste of the world, of wow, I'm really here in LA. Yeah. Paying bills. And
yeah. That's crazy. And before you continue, one thing that just came to mind is I want to touch on the fact that you realized you were graduating with, you know, a degree that might not necessarily get you hired. Like, I'm not going to hire you just because you got a director's degree, right?
Right.
And you realize that, okay, how do I provide something of value that somebody is willing to hire me? And I think that's a very important thing, because I think when it comes to passion and what we can actually do, at the end of the day, we still got to find something that will provide us with a way of living. And I think it's really smart that you were able to think about, what do people need, what is actually valuable, but still somewhat related. And I think that editing really helped you out there.
That was the nail in the coffin, to be honest with you. In ways that are paying off now, and we'll get to, because Vice gave me a taste of the industry, and it also gave me my first actual industry cred. Like, I was assistant editor on some hot content at the time. I was on JanSport. We did a project with them. We did another one on King of the Road and Thrasher at the time. So I was able to get a taste of the branded content side of editing and the hustle behind that, and really understanding the corporate and narrative storytelling. And I was able to build some good foundation. And that strategic decision I made to figure out, okay, there's a way that I need to make some money while I'm out here, helped me then build the career that I have now, for sure. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. It's about intention. I always moved with intention. So I knew I wanted to direct and write. And you were like, how did you make a leap so drastic without really any plan? Is because I knew that if I kept searching for an editing gig, I would have to get one.
Yep.
Because I'm in the land of opportunity, and I'm also doing the work, and God has to provide the abundance for that. And so here I am. Sure enough, Vice lands. And so, but I knew to hit him up prior. It's all about intention and making sure you're moving accordingly. And so that's kind of where that landed.
Got you. Okay. So let's talk about Cali, bro. We're in Cali now. You're editing, and this whole time I'm assuming you still wanted to get in your directive bag, right? That was kind of like your whole goal. So I guess what was your thinking, like, okay, bet I'm gonna do this advice, and then hopefully this will happen? Or were you kind of working on some side hustles?
Man, I'm trying to see how to lay this out, because 4 months into working at Vice, I was laid off. And at that time, those 4 months, my focus was only Vice. Like, I was just getting acclimated to the city. You know, I'm living it up, or at least trying to, for what I can. You know, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, how long am I really going to be on this man's couch? Yeah. It's kind of tacky. You know, he doing his thing with his girl. Yeah. It's just awkward. It's and not like that. I'm just saying the space alone, you know, this is their space too. It's, it's a lot. And so, you know, it became a bit overwhelming to some degree, you know, because you are hustling at a company that is outputting a lot of content. And you're also trying to say, okay, where do I fit? How do I get in? And hey, I am a good editor. Hey, and again, going back to, you know, again, I think our lives are set up in payoffs. That's why I love the human essence. I talk about that in writing, because we go to setup, which was the elementary aspect of feeling, you know, out of place. You know, the payoff is coming to Vice, feeling out of place again, just from the Black standpoint. It's like everything, we got to look at the patterns. And so, you know, so now I'm like, okay, how do you move accordingly? You have to be exceptional. And so now I'm really looking at the landscape of, I have to use my words. I have to talk. I have to be face to face. It's not enough to just hide behind the computer and edit well. Okay. There are a lot of people who are doing that here. I had to now get in front and start to utilize the JB-ness to really let them know, okay, he has more to it than just editing. And so building this juice, I'm like, I'm paying my bills, getting paid. I'm stacking money. I'm still on the couch, but I'm okay. I'm in Cali doing my thing. Hey. Man, we're gonna lay you off. And they don't describe it. They don't let me know why. Yeah. 4 months in, I'm at Vice. I'm at Vice, y'all. The Vice. Like, we all know that. Right. And again, it goes back to just perspective. You know, sometimes you have to look at where you are and miss and look at the fact that sometimes your ego's involved. And my ego was loving that. I'm at Vice and doing my thing. Right. And when your ego's attached to something to the point where it's now more your focus than anything else and actually growing, that's when you start really losing out. And so I had to take a step back. After that 4 months, I'm laid off. What am I supposed to do? I'm on somebody's couch. I have a little bit of savings. I don't know. I need a job. I need a job. But and so we go back to being forward facing with people. I at least know I can work a room. So I decided to get a job at Best Buy. Hey. So I love Best Buy. You see what I'm saying? So it's life. It was full of different opportunities to make decisions on what's best and what's true. And I think life is just.
What do you mean by that?
Me working at Best Buy wasn't true to what I wanted at all. but it was best for my growth.
I see what
And
you
so
did there. I see what you did there.
it was a pivotal moment again where I'm like, okay, do you stay here in LA? You've moved here. You're starting to get roots. Do you stay here, get comfortable? So now you're saying it was best, but what's true? So let's keep that in mind as we continue throughout this talk. So now I'm at Best Buy. I'm like, okay, what's true though? This is not it. I love retail. Again, my sale numbers were great. I can do this.
Yeah.
But this isn't true. So at the time, I'm like, but what's best is I need more money. And the holiday was coming up. So, and this is again how God works. My mom came down to visit when I think this was 2015. Okay. And she bought me a new laptop. And we met this young man named Cian at the Apple store who it was a vibe. He was like, he loved my energy. He loved my mom's energy. He was showing love. He was like, my mom told a bit about my situation, you know, as mamas do. I'm like, oh girl, you embarrassing me. But
my baby was advice, y'all.
Man, but look at him now. He's, a little bit down on his luck. And I thank God having a rider like that, because that piqued his spirit. That piqued his interest. And so he was like, take my information down. If you really want to work, I can put you into the referral program, and that, fast tracks you through the hiring process, right? So I'm like, okay. I follow up with him. Sure enough, he does. So at the time I was at Best Buy, I was trying to land a gig at Apple. And sure enough, Best Buy was like, okay, we think we want to move you to the Magnolia home theater department. Because I was that good. Like, I was selling numbers. I was like, okay, we about to start getting to this routine again, but what's best and what's true. And that money started looking best. It's all about getting off this couch. It's about making my life comfortable. Sometimes you have to learn some skills first before your life gets comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I do need more money. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
So they like, Magnolia offering this much, Apple's offering this much. Now I know if I can work the floor here at Magnolia and I go to Apple and work it the same way, I'm a shoe-in. Uh-huh. So I take the gig at Apple. Man, they beat my ass on that floor. That product floor, woo! Another beast, because you're coming in with people who are entitled, who want their product, who are looking for something specific. Then you have other people who really don't know what they're looking for, and you have to be on it. They said that they model themselves after the Hilton, their standard of customer service. So how can I help you? You're on your feet. You can't sit down. So it's like, it was something else that I'm like, I'm so thankful for the bread, but it's not true.
He said, this ain't it.
This ain't it. And so you got to come to a point where you stand true, and God will open those doors. And sure enough, while I was working at Apple, I was applying to jobs. I had just had the Vice gig. I had a couple of stuff that I worked on at the University of Michigan that allowed me to kind of pad the resume. But the real beefy one was Vice. So I was sending that out with hopes of, okay, I'll get another editing gig. But I knew I couldn't stay. And Apple was paying good money, especially if you stay in and really do, like, it's a great company. They pay you well. Yeah. And they also treat you like family. And it's that's another story. Nonetheless, it's real easy to sit and be comfortable there. That's great for some. But for me, I knew I came to LA with purpose. Yeah. And sure enough, I was like, I've had it at Apple. I was there another 4 months, and a gig came through for editing gig at a small mom and pop company. Gotcha. And, that's the next kind of chapter of evolution from there.
That's dope, man. And one thing I want to give you a heads up. I know usually we only get an hour, but what I want to do, because we didn't start on the time I wanted to start. For sure. Once we start reaching that hour limit, I'm gonna run it back, and then you'll join back in, and we'll give it like another 30 minutes. For sure. If you cool with that.
I'm cool, man. Listen.
But yeah, I want to hear about this story. So now we've seen that, you've worked the Best Buy, the retail side. You're like, I'm good at it, but it's not me. It's not true, which I really like that saying, by the way. And
somebody said this man love 4-month jobs. Listen, I get in and get out. And I it's funny to say that. And at the time, I used to think like, damn, I don't want people to see my resume and be like, he can't keep a job. No. What I did, though, was every job leveled up from the last. There was never a time where I downgraded. So, yeah, he might have been 4 months, but look what he did. And then when you meet him, man, he kind of a little charm about him. And so again, it's about what's best and what's true. And it was easy to stay 4 months, 6 months, a year. Now you're there 2 years. You're getting paid, that check's hitting, and you've lost sight. And that's no disrespect to people who need that job. Stay there and get your bread. Please do. But there's always an out, and you can always find that way. And I was still hustling. Like while I was at Apple, I was networking, or at least trying my best to, but they had me working my shifts like crazy. So I was tired. And again, that's when I knew that my job was becoming a sacrifice to my actual craft. If I can't wake up and still function and do what I need to do for my actual growth in my business, this isn't for me. And so I had to put my faith in God, saying, God, okay, you know I need to pay these bills. You also see that this job is killing me and I'm busting my butt. Yeah. Help me. Help me. And so people miss that, okay, God, I'm struggling. Help me. But are you doing the work to get help? You want help, and you're not doing anything to contribute to any relation. That's like any relationship. You're not doing anything to show me that the next level you're worth taking. So I had to position myself at a point and saying, God, okay, look, I'm here. I'm in LA. I'm here. And so I got the job at the editing gig, and I'm editing bullshit. I'm editing Epson printer computer. I mean, we were doing like small little commercials that they did internally for their products. I mean, snooze fest galore. I remember days where I really was like contemplating like tearing the edit bay up, like because I was so bored. Paul, listen to me, bro. I was so bored, and this is a critical moment in the journey because I started to really lose myself here. Yeah. But it's also a critical moment because I met the man who I'm now in business with for EarleyBird. Yeah. I mean, I was at this editing job, hating it, but
he said I'm editing printers.
Bro, Epson printers. I mean, dude, oh my God, I can't even describe to you how tacky and slow. It just was not necessary, but there's always a lesson and God will always make a way. And so in that moment, what we were editing on was a software that was technically dated in the industry. It was Avid. And I learned Premiere Pro when I was editing that last 2.5 or 1.5 years at Michigan. And so when I got to this editing gig, I didn't know shit about Avid. Nothing.
How did they hire you? Did they not ask you if you knew Avid?
I lied.
You said, you know Avid? Yeah, I know Avid. Yeah.
But I believed in my editing abilities. I believed in I knew I could tell a story. I knew you have to be confident sometimes because, listen, white people lie all the time on how, and that goes to where I've elevated in where we'll go from where I edited now into where I go next. Yeah. I know people for sure who have lied on their resume. Because when we work face to face, it's not lying. Your work ethic you're lying. So I already know anyway.
You got to get it how you live, bro.
You got to get it how you live. And I was confident enough in my ability and my talent and what I have learned, what I picked up to say, listen, I'm going to get in and just get it. And sure enough, I'm thankful for the young man. His name is Ben. I'll never forget him. He really walked me through understanding Avid. And I was supposed to come in and pretty much replace him.
Oh, shit.
Like he was leaving for a project.
Gotcha.
So by the time he left, I was supposed to be at his level, if not already there. So now I'm in the office like, oh my God, what do these people expect of me? But that's when you have to tap into what you truly have gifted inside of you. And I really worked hard to pay attention. I worked hard to understand the language that the company was about and understand the technical side of it. Yeah. Again, it goes back to those Vice days. Everything is about setup and payoff. I was setting up being forward facing with these people and interacting. I was now at a mom and pop that was much smaller and much more intimate where I had to exercise those same skills. Gotcha. So now I have to understand because that man was running everything essentially. Like when somebody came in to do a voice recording, he had to know Pro Tools enough to do the levels. And so now I'm in territory and thank God for working at the dude because I knew the DMC rooms. Like thank Ryan and Peter and all them and Carlos and the OGs. They helped me understand. And
dude is a library in University of Michigan.
The University of Michigan, the audio library, fantastic. If you guys ever get a chance to check it out, check it out. There's a bunch of audio and on content. Just it's a beautiful library. Nonetheless, working there builds those skills of being able to say, okay, I know my way around here to adapt. That's why everything has to be a lesson. You have to be patient enough to learn what's in the moment.
Gotcha.
And I had to go back and get those skills and say, how do I work this room? And so by the time Ben left, I for sure held down that job. And I for sure knew Avid enough to edit these Epson boring ass printer videos. But I also knew it enough to then say that after, I think now I was there 6 months.
Hey, okay.
Okay.
We upgraded now.
And while I was there, I met a guy named JoJo. There was a young man who I went to school with, one of my best friends ever in life, Louis Acuff. His brother knew a young man who did Vines. And Wes is Lewis's brother, was like, Jay, I think you should hit up this young man that I know. So Wes sends me the information, and me and JoJo hit it off. I had put together like some little tacky website. It was enough for the time. And I sent him over my reel. I sent JoJo my reel, and I was like, this is some of my work. I did a commercial for a Doritos spinoff. Like, it was called Munchies, and it was this man in the forest with this pistol. It was sweet, but it was also a lot. And you're like, okay. But nonetheless, it was dope storytelling. And JoJo, yeah, you feel me, for some bag of chips. And so, anybody want to check out any of these videos, my website link is in my bio. So nonetheless, I send it to JoJo, and he's like, man, yo, you got some dope work. And he's like, I think we should collab. And at the time, JoJo's this big Vine sensation.
Yeah,
I
remember his videos, yeah.
So I'm like, this could really be something great. Like, I'm in this boring ass job. These, individuals, coworkers don't really get my sense of humor. Like, I'm the youngest here. It's 6 of us. Again, what's best and what's true. And so in tandem with that, I applied for a grantship at Huffington Post doing virtual reality. And that's kind of where the next segment of that's what I'm saying. There's so many things and so many opportunities that I went and was afforded that have blessed me in such a way we'd be here for 3, 4, 5 hours, bro.
And let me actually stop
and that's
you
not
there.
to brag, it's just to
And I want to stop you there so that way we can start on the next episode. So what I'm gonna do for everybody watching, I'm gonna actually get off and then get back on, just because IG Live gives me a 1 hour limit. And then I want to start it when we do this. I want to start your story back up at the Huffington Post. So I'm gonna run it back,
spot.
And I'll see y'all in like 1 minute. All right, y'all. Welcome back to part 2. I know part 1 was started off a little bit late, so I wanted to make sure we gave Jay the time to really tell his story. And
appreciate that.
Yeah, so let's continue. I think we're finally getting into what you're currently doing now with EarleyBird. And you had just mentioned you just met JoJo, and then you're applying for something at the Huffington Post. So let's continue right there.
So meet JoJo. We kind of started talking about creatively working together. And I came to the table with much more experience, and that's no slight to JoJo, but he was hungry. He was like, I want to know what you know. Like, there's something else more that I want to do than just these 30-second vines or 60-second vines. I'm a storyteller. I'm like, okay, well, let's get to it. And so this is really the inception of me kind of starting my own work. Like, when I first got to LA, I really didn't work on anything independently for my own sake as far as creative work. So for a while, I felt a bit frustrated. Not a bit, a lot, because you're in an industry where, in a place where people are talking about their work nonstop. Oh, I did this. I'm here. I'm this. And so one of the biggest things I had to learn how to conquer was again, going back to ego, is self-gratification. Because when you start to kill portions of your ego that needs that reciprocation of gratification to make sure you're valid in what you do, you get lost in that. Mm-hmm. And I quickly could feel myself spiraling into a place where I'm like, I'm not putting out any content. Am I truly a creator? So JoJo was right on time, because I was really hoping that something like this would come along. And then Huffington Post was a 6-month grant, or not even a grant. What's it called? Anyway, it was a
apprenticeship or some shit.
Yeah, not even an apprenticeship, but nonetheless, it was something that wasn't a full-time gig.
Gotcha.
And so, it was in VR. Again, being in spaces that I'm unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with, and having to navigate them and be the best me.
Yeah.
I don't know shit about VR. It's new, really. New to me, at least. The Oculus, it just came out.
Just stay line on the resume.
Man, and so now that's what I'm saying. So every next move had to be an intention. So I'm at this bored, stale ass job, needing more. So JoJo comes in the picture, and then Huffington Post like, we want you to come in and do some media management. So again, what's best and what's true. When I got to Huffington Post, I was not editing. For 6 months, I did not edit.
Damn.
I was media managing. So, but I was great at organizing. So I was able to articulate a system that was able to help process their hard drives. And then they started seeing that I was able to then handle, cloud storage. So I actually became a media manager. And again, God puts you in places to build all these tools because now it pays off. I can run a company myself because I've been at every position, literally, and I started off editing. Like what? So now I'm in VR, have no clue what they talking about. But I'm listening. I'm like, okay, I'm going back home doing my own research. So that way, when I show up to the table, I'm able to participate, and I'm able to hold my own weight. But they also are doing Premiere, so I'm familiar with Premiere. But I had just learned Avid from the last job, so I'm like, okay, this is back to the basics, and so I'm trying to get in where I fit in. Yeah. Essentially, I'm trying to edit these VR worlds. They have this big camera that has, I think, 12 or 16 GoPros. This was back in the day. It's much more advanced. This was 16, 17.
Okay, you were early on with it. Yeah, that's dope.
Early on. And so, like, it was foreign territory. People were going crazy. We're getting meetings. And so now I'm in the space where I'm seeing white people with money. Like, but not that they were paid, but they were paid enough to be a young company getting investors where they running the show. Yeah. And that intrigued me. I'm like, okay, what's behind the scenes here? What's really going on? How are you guys amassing a team of people out of nothing, getting funds, asking people to invest in a vision that you then bring to life later and then can carry on in the process for longevity's sake? Mm-hmm. Why can't I do this? Because half of you guys on the team don't know what you're talking about. If we keep it in a buck, like if I'm sitting and we're talking true business of narrative work and arcs and we get to a point where I'm really realizing you don't know what you're talking about. How are you this high up? How are you doing this? Yeah. Come on now. So I'm now looking at the behind the scenes. God always places you in positions to learn. And so I'm looking at this, but they love me so much as far as how I'm operating in that space. I get access to things that other people don't. I had a key to get into the building late at night. So when JoJo and I would go work on projects, I would come back and edit our projects. I see. So I'm utilizing, again, everything's about intention. You always have to make a plan. So I'm like, okay, well, these niggas not going to give me no chance to do what I want to do. Yeah. But I also need to be in a position where I'm staying true to where I'm at, what's best, but what's true to me. The money's helping me. By this time, I got my own apartment. I've moved out of, I was only in my cousin's apartment for 6 months. Got my own place while I was working at Apple. That was another hustle, paying those bills by myself. But by this time, so I'm like, what's best and what's true? I had to get something out of it. And I was getting the ability to have an edit bay. Like JoJo would come over late at night and we in this eating all these snacks. Like they would, I love these companies, man, because they got so much money. They got snacks coming just daily. Carts full of, just goodies. And so me and JoJo would ransack and eat all their goodies. We wouldn't just go crazy and be ghetto with it, but we would, partake, and it became a thing. It was a ritual. And that's how we came up with Mail Route. We edited Mail Route, which was one of our best YouTube series to date until we come out with this new heat. Speak on it. It was one of our best series to date, and we knew then when we were editing that we had something. We knew that there was something great about our energy. Now, meanwhile, I'm still working on Valiant Films back home, which is my own other production company on a feature film. Yeah. So now I'm really starting to balance this idea of being a creator and being low key. I had to really become a director on my own. It wasn't a program that I submitted a application for and I was awarded an opportunity to come shadow, or a writing. I pitched something and someone came and said CBS or whoever. Yeah. And those opportunities absolutely exist. But God orchestrated this thing so crazy, I truly didn't need it. And not that I don't want it or discredit those who have it. And there's a part of me who wishes, or a part of me that wishes I would have. But I was still afforded an opportunity to still walk in that authority as a director and writer to get to this point. Because now me and JoJo are working on our own content, and now we're saying, let's hustle. Let's get this, there's strength in numbers. Let's get this because we're like-minded.
Yeah.
Let's get this moving. And so that's how that happened. And so I was at Huffington Post, and it got to a point where I was about to be laid off again. And me and JoJo are working on...
Did you make it to 8 months, though?
No, the program was only for 3, and they extended it for another 3.
Oh, okay.
So I actually made it to 6, and
Okay.
they were like, we could keep you, but your role is high key, not essential. High key. So we kind of, but we like what you bring to the table just from a creative standpoint. But I was like, if you guys are not going to pay me what I'm worth, number one, and number two, what I bring to the table, and give me an opportunity and a space to be a creative leader, I don't want to be here. Again, what's best and what's true. And so I made a connection back home in Ann Arbor before I was graduating at a screening for a documentary film. This was when I was on my documentary photography tip, who ended up working at Netflix. So at the time I'm leaving Huffington Post, Jason and I are friends. He hears that I've been editing, and because we check in often, we go get lunch, coffee, whatever. That's what you got to do in LA. You got to meet up or whatever.
Network.
Got a network, but we were really good friends. And he's like, yo, bro, I low-key got a gig that's coming up for a show on Netflix that I think you should be an assistant editor for. You should come on and help out. Now, I'm working with JoJo, and, we slow rolling this thing. We're building content. We're young, trying to write stuff that we think is fresh, and we're gaining momentum. But I also needed to pay these bills. And this is a Netflix show. Again, we talking about that resume. So there's never a time where the jobs weren't stacking, and I was able to learn what I needed to learn. So I'm like, I'm going to take it. Guess what these niggas was cutting on?
What?
Avid.
Yo.
They was cutting on Avid.
That's a sign, bro.
I hated the job when I had Avid. I hated it. But I knew it so well from hating it because I was so bored and I had to dig through it and do whatever that when I got to the Netflix gig, I was able to carry my own weight.
Wow. There
was nothing that I couldn't do. From an actual assistant editor standpoint, I was in my lane for whatever it was worth. And I was editing. Editing. Like, we're talking about a show on Netflix that to this day you can pull up right now. Boom, credits. So now I'm really feeling like big man on campus. I'm like, yeah, we really doing this.
What's the show, bro? Get that.
It's called Ugly Delicious.
Ugly Delicious. On Netflix?
Yes, it is. And it came out, I think, 2 years ago at this point. They have a season 2 out, but I only worked on season 1.
Okay. And
it's about a show. Chef David Chang, who's an awesome chef. Some of his food is very high priced. That's another story. But he makes great meals. He's a great chef, and he has this show that articulates this cultural appropriation of food that we enjoy every day in America, but don't attribute to its actual roots.
Okay.
And so he talks about pizza. Like, one episode's pizza. Fried chicken is one. I worked on fried chicken, obviously.
They said we need somebody for this part.
Come on, brother. Again, I'm a one of none. Yeah. That's only me.
Yeah.
So fried chicken, pizza, barbecue was a fire episode. They have one on fried rice, which talks about, Chinese immigration and breaks down the historical elements of this food that has become emblematic of America, but we don't embrace the culture that it came from. And it's a powerful show nonetheless, but it also gives you places to go eat. Like, a lot of those places I've been to and got a chance to really enjoy some food. Jonathan Gold is on there, rest in peace, food critic legend. So anyone check that out. But nonetheless, now I'm at a point where I'm editing on software that I'm a beast at, on a show that actually gives me credit, in a place where I'm actually articulating creative feedback. Yeah. I'm talking to the other editors. I'm talking to the creative director, the director himself, who's putting the money behind it, and the executive producer. So now I'm understanding their roles. I have no choice. The building, we're in the room. So it's like, I'm embracing all of this. Now I'm understanding the editing side of it. I got that down pat. Now I'm getting the business side of it. They're showing me really how it's about and what it is. And so Netflix was strong, a strong gig. I was really hitting my stride. I loved Netflix. And to this day, I have some coworkers that I ride or die for that, we go out and eat now or when we could.
That's legit, bro.
So we get to Netflix and I go and move on again. I stayed there a year and a half, I think.
Hey, we love to see it. We love to see it, bro.
And so year and a half, it's time to transition. Now, at this point in my game, I'm able to, the resume is patterned enough where I'm able to choose where I kind of want to go. Like, what's next for me to level up the best way I need to? And I picked this branded company called Attention, ATTN, and they were doing like short 2-3 minute videos talking about social justice and climate change and things like that. And so shout out to EarleyBird in the comments.
Hey.
I appreciate my company. Thank you so much for hearing your CEO talk. Appreciate y'all. I'm grateful for you guys. So I'm here at this crossroad where Netflix is talking about another season, but this gig is now salary at Attention. We're talking money now. We're talking about dental, health. I'm an adult. I'm an adult.
Hey,
insurance?
Not the health insurance.
Not the... I'm a big boy now. Yeah. So I'm trying to really make moves that make sense. Again, true, invest.
Yeah.
And so this was worth it. I needed a minute to really treat myself. Attention really gave me that space to be an adult. Mm-hmm. I treated myself to some luxuries. You know, I paid for some dinners. You know, I was able to, I got an apartment that I wanted. That it was that era where I was balling. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is feeling good.
Yeah.
This is feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
My hard work was paying off. And you think the story gets easier from here, but it did not in any way, shape, or form. Because the year that I was there at Attention, and we go back to you talking about, you're just able to make these wild moves, was the year I got the heaviest in my life, you know, body-wise, physically. And I realized that I was allowing myself to lie about some truths that I was hiding. And this is why internal healing and soul searching, and I hate the word soul searching because it sounds so cliche, but that SHIT is real, and everyone should do that because you begin to really clean up that stuff that's guarding your heart from growing. And that year was the toughest year. I was in a relationship of 6 years. Shout out to Abria. I love her. That's a great friend of mine now. You know, that was also something that I was fighting for, but also fighting for my vision as a director and writer, but also not really, you know, I mentioned JoJo and we were kind of running together at this time, but he had his own growth. So we kind of, I don't want to say separated, but he was working on something else and I was working on something else. I had a whole feature that I was working on back in Detroit with Valiant Films, you know, a company that I started when I was in college with the drum major of the marching band at the time. David, my boy. And so, you know, we're working on this feature. So I'm really trying to articulate my own journey and also build JoJo's, but we couldn't because we had so much growth that we needed to go through. And so I felt like I was losing my brother at the time. I was hurt. We were going through a transition. That's really what it was. We weren't fighting or anything, but he was working on a lot of content and finding opportunities to grow as a producer. And that was right on time because we needed that. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But so I'm sitting here at Attention, making great content, making great friends, but I'm dying in the inside. I'm struggling bad. Like, the apartment's nice, yeah, the meals are nice, but I'm overindulging because I'm not happy and I'm not confident in my work anymore. I'm letting people and the intentions that they have for me outweigh where I'm supposed to be moving. So now I've hit a wall. So I'm back at analyzing everything that I thought I was supposed to have. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing this right now. Such and such just dropped a video. This person just did this. And not only that, I'm gaining weight. I'm sitting at an editing desk giving all of my creative energy. Like, this is the most that I've ever gave a creative energy into any company. I'm talking about ways to move the company as far as pre-production, post-production workflow to get to the editing bay much easier and restructuring, you know, the hierarchy of some of these things to really manage a company. Like, at this point, I'm growing. Now I'm walking in JB-ness. Like, I'm really becoming the CEO, but I don't have that space to hit that yet. And God's timing never fails. And so I'm really trying to flex these muscles, but I can't. And it's a lot of resistance. And so I'm at rock bottom.
And give us a little timeline to where you at with this. What year?
So this is probably 2018.
Okay.
2000 because I quit my job.
At Attention.
Quit. I was there at Attention. I told them I literally told them I'm giving y'all a month notice. Wow. God told me that I was supposed to quit my job and go to Europe.
To Europe? I thought you about to break it down like, I'm going to take some time off. He said, now I'm going to Europe.
Brother.
Wow.
God told me to quit my job. He was like, I had saved up enough money to do it. Like I was able to take a large chunk, not a large, I don't want to cap. I took out $3,000 because I do think it's healthy for people to understand and be transparent.
Yeah, I like that.
Because travel is essential, and this particular journey was essential because I was really at a crossroad of faith. I was down on my luck bad. The movie got delayed a year because while we were shooting in 2017,
somebody said they need your God. Hey, yo, y'all ain't right.
You gotta. What did they say?
They said they need your God.
That's the crazy part. They can get them.
Okay.
On all seriousness, yeah, I'm preaching about some stuff that ain't just for me, but nonetheless, I'm hoping that what I'm saying can help somebody because it's possible. I was struggling. I mean, if you go through my Instagram, you'll see a moment where I share, this transition, and essentially, I was like, I think you should do this. I was very afraid to go to Europe. I was afraid, like to the point where I was getting anxiety. And something was speaking to me about that. The Holy Spirit was like, bro, something here. Why are you afraid to take this leap? Feel me? Mm-hmm. Why are you afraid to that? When you said, Paul, I feel like I want to, but nah. Everything was telling me not to. Mm-hmm. And I was so curious about what was on the other side of if I actually did. Mm-hmm. And I am so grateful and so thankful that God gave me the strength too, because Paul, what was on the other side of me quitting my job and going to Europe was some soul searching. Like, my family didn't understand it. 2 months in Europe by yourself.
Yeah.
You've never been like, yeah, I went and did it. And I was refreshed, Paul, in a way that I encourage everyone. And I'm not saying that you got to drop $3,000 and travel, but I do think you need to take time to be with yourself because God was able to show me some things about me that cleaned up a lot of things that were roadblocks into my growth. Mm-hmm. And while I was having a blast in Europe and seeing a part of the world that I only imagined I could see in history books, yeah, I was able to see a part of myself that I never would have never been able to see. Mm. And so I was able to get ministered to, and he was able to clean up some of the dark issues and the selfish ways and the conceitedness and the things that we walk around, the ego, the death of ego. The death of ego is so important. People should read up on that. Yeah. And so, yeah, I quit my job. I quit. And a week before I was supposed to go, I was like, I'm not going. And Will Smith dropped this video that said something about like parachuting and what's on the other side of fear. And it was all these things that I already been telling myself. Yeah. And I made the commitment after hearing that, as corny as it was, to do it. And man, I did it. And you think, oh, his life got better. It surely did, but it did not when I thought it was supposed to. Because I got back.
Yeah. And we're
didn't
in
have
Europe,
a job.
Drop some countries. We're in
Europe. So I started off in London, and I flew over from Detroit to London, got into London, and stayed there for about 4 days. And then flew from London to Amsterdam, stayed Amsterdam for 3, and took the train all the way down the rest through Belgium. Okay. I was in Brussels. I went to Switzerland for a minute. I checked out Venice. Florence was probably one of my favorite stops. I just took it all throughout the Western coast. My last stop was Venice, flew home to New York, and then New York to Detroit. Wow. I hit up Germany. Mainz, Germany was fire. If anyone ever gets a chance to go to Mainz, please do. I think it's an hour outside of Frankfurt.
Yeah, Europe is a vibe, bro.
Europe is a vibe.
It's a vibe.
So I'm here in Europe, and I'm really doing this journey, and I just understand what peace is. I understand what it means to be in solace and present. Mm-hmm. And that really helped with meditation. I got a great book at the time that helped me unlock meditation. Some people think that meditation and prayer and God are all separate. They all work together. And so meditation was able to help me cleanse my mind and calm my mind. Gotcha. And I was able to listen. And so, yes, it was still on that $3,000, by the way. And I got to 2 months and was broke. I was pushing it, and there was a point where I was almost like, I might stay here. Like it's, but I had other work to do. So I'm glad I didn't stay. But yeah, it was definitely still on the $3,000. Again, it goes to moving with intention. I budgeted, a great friend of mine, Mel, helped me out. Her name, I forget what her Instagram is, but she's a great travel planner. She's into the logistics of it. She was helping me, save money and think about this. So make sure you have people around you who can help you. But I made that 3K stretch. I stayed in Airbnbs. I really wasn't with the hostels. Like, that felt a little dormy to me, and I hated dorms.
Yeah, been there, bro.
I was like, if I'm going to really go, I'm going to just make sure I budget accordingly. And I was able to.
And one thing, too, I know prior to this transition, this need to go to Europe, you were talking about you felt that you had to lose weight, you had to get fit. So when you were in your Europe trip, were you still able to maintain this level of watchful eating, or were you not as caring as much because you're traveling?
Oh, I maintained it, but I also used the fact that I was walking everywhere and it was hot. Mind you, I was there, I left June or July. Oof. And that summer, I think it was at least 100 degrees consistently. So when I got there, I started treating being there as a workout. Like, I was walking so much with my baggage. I only brought one duffel bag full of stuff. Again, packing it properly. Like, I became really efficient. I was literally a nomad as I was hitting all these spots and traveling, pulling up to an Airbnb. And so I used that as weight loss. Like, the heat, I was sweating. I was carrying this bag. So I ate the carbs necessary to keep me moving throughout the day, because I was doing a lot of moving. I'm climbing steps. Like, when I was in Amsterdam, I mean, they have some of the steepest steps you could ever imagine inside of a house. I'm talking about an incline where you're like, I may fall backwards. For real. Like, I have pictures I may try to post on my story, but you're like, whoa. And so, like, it's nothing but the journey. Gotcha. And so that helped me stay fit. And that started this kind of fitness. So I ate the carbs necessary to stay fit. But nonetheless, when I was back home at Detroit preparing for the Europe trip, I was really on my salads only tip. And even at Attention, like, when I was about to leave Attention, I was eating salads every single day, at least 2-3 salads. And I lost weight. Like, it was dropping off. So by the time I came back from Europe, my diet had been so regimented. I was fit from walking. I was skinny. And then I was able to say, okay, now it's really time to get this fitness lifestyle, because I've lost all of that weight. But I also had the clarity of mind to lose the weight. There was a lot of baggage attached to my weight. I was insecure about who I was as a man, as the talent and the director. I had lost that. I was not confident in my gift whatsoever. And I think sometimes it's okay to admit that and then accept that and move forward and be like, you know what, pick yourself up. And once I realized that, it didn't happen when I got back from Europe, because when I got back from Europe, I had nowhere else to go. I was supposed to move to Houston because I had quit my job, right, at Attention. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Houston and reinvent myself. Saved up all this money. That's disrespectful. I saved up all this money to move back and reinvent myself. I'm like, LA was hard. I was defeated. So I thought Europe would be this reset. I'd come back from Europe, go to Houston. Dang. Man, no. My spirit said no. Like, because I was running from the challenge that LA was. I was running from what my calling was. And my spirit knew that. And God knew it. And he's like, if you go there, you're going to fall apart. Not because you're not capable of going, but because that's not where you're supposed to be. Gotcha. And so I'm like, I got to move back to LA. I literally packed all my stuff and moved it to Houston in a storage unit. My motorcycle, everything, like all of my belongings was packed up. So when I had left Europe, I was literally like, move. Yeah. You wasn't trying to. So you never really had that intention of coming back when you was leaving. You was like, no. So now I'm at, again, I had so many points in life where God was like, are you going to listen or are you going to keep doing it your way? And I'm back in Detroit, torn between Houston and LA or whatever I'm hearing at this point. Yo, Houston's nice, bro. We don't pay. Houston's fire. Tax. My cousin lives there. And that's what I'm saying. I had came there a few times because my cousin lives there. Yeah. He was showing me the life, So it was a vibe. And I'm like, I could do my documentary photography here. I was trying to bring, my portrait photography to life a bit more and the elegance and nuance of what I do for that work. So I'm like, yeah, this could be a great time for that. No, it was not a great time for that because there was something else greater in LA that I was running from. And once I accepted that, I'll never forget it. I called a friend. And this was the night after I had cried out to God. I was in the middle of the rain. It was like a thunderstorm. And I was like, I've lost all hope. Like I was screaming in the middle of the rain. Like, I've lost all hope. I was crying, bro. I was, again, down on my luck. Or so you think. It's all here. I was like, I have nothing else to do. I have nowhere else to go. I don't know where. help me. And I remember going back into the house after saying help me and doing all this crying, feeling defeated. I laid in a blow-up bed that my mom had upstairs at her condo because I didn't live there at the time.
Yeah.
My friend said it's so dramatic. Right? But that's real stuff. That's I was
video, yeah.
I was hoping like, Lord, in the rain, can you see my plea? If I get struck by lightning, will that be enough? But I'm being serious. I really wanted him to hear my heart because I was hurt. And so I cried out, went upstairs, and I didn't feel changed. And 3 days later, a friend of mine called me named Jane. And we had this kind of come to life moment. And she's like, well, what's up with you? What are you doing next? I was like, Jane, I really don't know. She's like, you're not coming back to, LA? I was like, no, while I was in Milan, I stopped at Milan while I was in Europe. I had an email from a young guy who was working on a show at Quibi. And when Quibi was hot and it was blackballed. Right. So at the time I'm traveling, I get this email. And now, remember, God was like, no more working. So I'm like, I'm not going back to LA to work. No way. He's like, we got this editing gig for you where you can start this show essentially from the ground up called Blackballed, about Donald Sterling coming out saying all that racial stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, bet it up. But I don't know if I really want to come back to work. Is that where God's calling me? So I had blew off the email. So by the time I get to the Detroit moment with Jane on the phone, the email's an afterthought. But she's like, you know something, JB? It seems like everybody here believes in you. You have so many people in your corner who say you do good work, great work, some of the best work people have seen. She's like, but it sounds like you don't believe in yourself. Mm. And when she said that, I was really convicted. Like, I felt terrible that she was able to call me out on my bull. And I remember sitting there in that moment and was like, damn, if I don't believe in myself, all of this was pointless. Everything that I've been through, everything that I've shared, everything that I journeyed through was a waste of time. And that's when I heard LA say, you had to come back to me and conquer me because you're more than a conqueror. And so that's when life really started to look good. Now you're asking, well, when does it picks up here? Because I had the tests enough to where my endurance was hardened. And so no longer than after that, JoJo calls me, my long lost brother who I stayed in touch with. And is like, the gift God gave you and what we were able to do and what the vision that you have, I want you to come help me lead this company. Will you be my CEO? Now, mind you, I'm already a CEO working on David and I, and this story isn't to discredit Valiant Films in no way. Because Valiant Films was my first love child, but we're the mom and pop of the industry. EarleyBird is kind of more of the forward facing kind of, this is going to be a network. And so Valiant Films is really our mom and pop, our slow work, our curated films. And I love doing that. That's where I can be really heavy handed with my writing and poetic. And not that I can't with EarleyBird, but it's a different speed. Yeah. And I'm so grateful because God was building all of these building blocks and putting these pieces together to help me be at this crossroad where I'm able to hold up two and not boast and say I'm a CEO of two companies, to really say I earned, and I have people around me who are great leaders themselves and great colleagues who not only believed in me, but believed in our dream and said, like, we can do this. We can really make a difference. And so when I came back to LA for the second time, it was a different energy completely.
You came through ready. I was guarded. I had built the armor. I had the necessary equipment. I had been at Netflix and Vice and here and attention. And I gained the weight and had to conquer the mental struggle. Like the weight loss wasn't to look good. It was to conquer my mind. Because I always would look and, I would hate looking at the mirror. I'd be like, oh, I hate looking at myself. I couldn't stand going in front of a mirror because I hated the way I didn't believe in myself enough to tame my body and my flesh enough to be committed to working out. So if I couldn't work out enough, how can I run a company? How can I edit? How can I be great at anything if I can't get my body in line with my mind and say, you're better than this? Mm-hmm. And I started hustling. I started working out and committing to a healthier lifestyle, not to look great, but to feel great. And that's also helped with some of that transformation. And so that's where I am now. Running two companies was not through just happenstance. And especially in a field where I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have anyone to lean on, and not that no one helped me. That would be a lie. Yeah. But I didn't have anyone directly connected in the industry that was like, you know what, you should do this or not do this and that. And it can be challenging because I wasn't able to figure it out all the time, or I was able to figure it out all the time, but I wasn't
able to know who to ask the right questions to. But in that, I learned so much because I'm a researcher. I'll start pulling out books and researching quick.
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to setup and payoff.
Yeah.
That's always been that. How are you going to move?
No, I love that. And I think out of all you said, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, because I know, everybody knows you got the two CEO, you got two companies,
right.
But I think the biggest part of that story is where he asked you to be a CEO.
Yep.
Which to me is a lot, because when I think I still deal with this every time, bro. Even when I told you, when I hit you up and you told me you were honored to be on my podcast, I'm like, what? I'm just doing it.
Bro.
Yeah. So I think that's really great that, somebody believed in you enough to bring you into that company. And I think that confidence in itself makes you perform better, because you're like, I can't let this person down.
Yeah.
And I think what you also should do, let the audience know, what is EarleyBird TV and why should we be excited for it?
EarleyBird TV, and it's I'm so glad you asked me this, because we're in the process of we're a fresh company. We've not even a year in, and we've done some original content that is mind blowing. So essentially, we are a production company that's focused on Black original content at its core, but creating cinematic universes in which our everyday is then woven into a way that is articulated to a fresh, vibrant new story. Thinking outside the box about our ordinary, I don't want to call us ordinary because I think we are supernatural and spectacular beings, but I think sometimes Hollywood mistakes ordinary for trauma, so that the Black experience, that is ordinary, where we're selling drugs or slinging crack. And those tales are true to our existence. So and I'm not saying that we don't tell those stories, and not that we shy away from them, and we integrate them in a way that I think empowers us more than it does defeat us. And I think Hollywood has a way of making that our only narrative. Mm-hmm. And so what EarleyBird does is say, how are we reimagining the existence of the Black narrative in ways where we create universes where you can be a superhero, where you can be, why can't we have a Game of Thrones world? Why can't we have a gritty environment that still speaks about empowering our people? That doesn't always have to be built in slavery and conquering our human side. Why can't we be free? Why can't we have a regular, normal American family? American, for whatever word that is. Yeah. But reinventing that and saying, we have some regular stories that are dope. I want to get back to the days where I remember being excited about the 4th of July, anticipating that barbecue cookout that you knew everybody would come over. Mm-hmm. And there's stories there. Build off those worlds, those human essence moments where you recall in your memory was like, man, time seemed like it lived forever. Those are powerful instances of our existence. And I think that's what I want to bring to EarleyBird as the CEO. And that's what they've offered and allowed me. And not that, I love that team. Nah. I love that team because we're going to do so many great things and they believe in me enough to let me lead them. And that's powerful. No, and so that's what EarleyBird is about, is just having a space where not only are we able to create, we're giving people spaces to create. We're hoping to invest and have people's scripts come to us and we produce. We're putting out our content first just to streamline and set the tone of, hey, look, this is what we're about. Yeah. But eventually we're hoping to get people, hey, send your scripts. They will be evaluated to a T, but send us your work. That's fire. Yeah. And we believe in you enough to say, you know what, let's put some money behind this. Let's invest, because I wish someone would have invested in me. I really do. And JoJo did, and Jason did, and the people that I've worked with, they invested in me. Mm-hmm. I thank God for the people who were in my life and the people back home in Detroit, some of my best friends, Louis and Orlando and George and everyone who contributed to me, you, the Alex and Brand, all of it came to fruition in this moment. And it's been so grateful to be a part of people seeing that evolution and being able to be healed and cleansed enough to accept love. Yeah. I think so many times we don't put ourselves in positions where we can accept things. Mm-hmm. And I'm at a true place of accepting people's love. And I just, that's where I'm at, man.
No, I love that. That was a great pitch, bro. I gotta sign up. Y'all got a subscription
Man, listen.
List. What's next?
So our website should be coming at the end of this month. Our targeted date is January 28th. And we're pushing hard for that. But you can definitely follow us on Instagram at EarleyBird TV. Yeah. But that's really what the company's about. Hopefully, we're claiming moving forward, we'll be able to give, invest money into foundations and really revitalizing what it means to have a creative conversation among Black people. Because there are areas where I wish there were times where I was growing up and could hold a camera. That could have changed my entire perspective on what it meant to be creative.
Yeah.
I didn't get a camera until I was a sophomore in college. And not that we couldn't afford one, or it was just that the opportunity. Like, what if it's given to you in a class and you're like, what's this? You start to tinker and you start to wonder and you start to dream.
Exactly, man.
It changes you. And so I want to be able to give back to the community and give them opportunities to learn and tinker. Because I'm a tinkerer. I like to break things down and really assess. And so why not give children and creative minds who are younger that same opportunity? And so I believe EarleyBird's really going to be a network that changes the industry. Our team is claiming it. I'm claiming it as the head. Like, the dynamic has to be different, because for so long things have been so simple and so basic and draining, and Black people are much more powerful. And some say, why do you make the company about Blacks? Because we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough strength in the industry where we can say this is a Black company. And so we're standing by that. And we do give opportunities to all. That doesn't discredit or discriminate anyone else from sending anything in, because we do believe in my team. If you look on my profile, my team is diverse. There's young women and Asians and Latinos and Blacks and white, because we believe in that. But at the forefront, our content is really where we're trying to bring life. And so we're standing on that confidently.
No, I believe that, man. I really just like appreciate that, because for me, I think when you ask me what life is about, I'm very much about people, man. I love people. I love talking to people. I love understanding why somebody is who they are, because that helps you to understand them. And, even though you mentioned you've been through your highs and lows and now you're up, you can still be down again, right? But what I'm getting from you is your mentality. You're trying to do the best for you and for others if you are able to, when you're able to.
Trying, I'm doing, because that's the part. There are days, literally this week was a hard week, and that's a conversation for another time. But it's about what you react to. And I'm reading this awesome book that helped me understand that I'll share on my story sometime in the near future, but not right now. But nonetheless, it's talking about how you react. And every decision you have an opportunity to react to, you allow a certain level of light to be inside of you. So whenever you start to find that negative side of you creeping up, or the oppressor speaking and saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, or cuss her out, or da-da-da, I find myself saying, okay, I'm reacting to this. Let me switch this and say, you know what? How do I allow more light in this situation? And immediately when I say that, the reactiveness or the anger or the negativity has to fade, because my whole mind is saying, switch to finding light. Yeah. And no matter where it comes from or how it does it, my mind changes. So I think when you're at a level where you're starting to find your stride, you have to be, one, not afraid of failing, because we're not built to fail, number one. Yeah. That's just the bottom line. We may feel like this is a fail, but everything's going to come back and work for our good. So when you start to lose the idea of failing, you begin to walk in confidence and then say, these situations that have me feeling uncomfortable, I need to address, because something's making me uncomfortable about this. There's either light or good, positive or negative. And so if I come and I'm saying, okay, this situation is making me feel negatively, you're reacting. Why are you reacting? Let's get to that. And when we then get rid of that reactiveness and focus on being proactive in the situation, every instance now, if you're on it daily, which I strive to be, there's nothing that can really stop you, really.
No, I believe that.
It just takes that mental conditioning, and that's why working out became so important to me, because I had to work my mind out enough to say, get your fat ass up and work out. Seriously. Yeah. That's how I had to kick myself in the butt, at least. Get up and work out. You can watch 20 different shows on television. You can smoke a blunt. You can do everything else. But work out for your betterment, get up and work out. And once I was able to condition that, I was able to condition my mind in every other area, because I was able to say, think positively immediately. You're going down the wrong path. Speak life to this situation. And so, yes, it gets hard. But I think when we look back at those lessons and everything that I tried to cover in this episode, it built endurance, and it built strength and character. And we have to honor our lessons, and we run from them so many times, and we say, oh my God, that was such a painful life, or that painful period. Yeah, it was. But where was the growth? Where you said, okay, what needed to be cleaned in my heart? Yeah. And so now that's how I work and operate. And this company works and Valiant Films work, and everything I do is with love and good intent. Because if I love you enough to take time to talk to you on your feed and on your IG, it blesses somebody else.
Facts.
And then I'm now a conduit of blessing. I'm not here to just get my blessing. I'm here to help people find out the truth. Mm-hmm. And the more I'm helping others, he has to continue opening doors for me, because he's like, okay, he's doing what he's supposed to do, helping people, loving, and not talking bad and not gossiping and not doing this. And there's so much room for good seeds. So I have to drop it on him. And now my business has to get blessed because of it. And then I'm a steward of that and manage it properly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it gets hard, but my faith allows me to stay strong. The things that I've been through, me remembering, like, wow, there was a time where you hated that boring ass job, where you hated, where you felt like nothing, where you were down on your luck. But look how you conquered through and came through it. And if we could just remember how we've conquered, man.
Nothing else, man. Nothing's impossible, bro. And, well, you kind of probably just said all I was going to ask, but I hope
I didn't mess up the flow of your show, man.
No. You were actually getting to the point of my show, and because one thing I always do when I'm getting ready to end the episode is I always ask for my guests to drop words of advice. If they had just one, you only had a certain amount of time, only a certain amount of words. What are the words of advice you would give to anybody listening to this, watching this? You know, and I feel like you've kind of dropped a lot, but I don't know if anything just comes to mind that you feel like if there's anything to take away from this episode, what do you think that is?
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a book that I want to show the audience. Give me 1 second.
Bet. This man got props, yo. Also, I want to appreciate y'all for tuning in. I know it's been a longer episode, but I think it's worth it.
All right, so I had to get the book because a lot of people just hear me say it and be like, okay, yeah, whatever. But when I left for Europe, the 7 spiritual laws of success. When I left for Europe, my mentor, Brian, oh my God, forgetting this man's last name, Brian Rhodes, he gave me this awesome book. This awesome book changed my life. And I talk about God and prayer and meditation. But before I even got closer to God, I had to get my mind right. And this is a practical book on strengthening your mind, understanding the cosmic energy that we have within inside of us that allows us to do and be everything. And while I was on, quote unquote, the road to Damascus, essentially, in Europe, this book, this isn't something that I flew through. Like, I only could read a chapter a month because I really would study and practice the principles. I encourage anyone who's watching to really pick this up. This book really changed my life. It's not one of those self-helps that feel like you can, it really breaks down the innate ability to change your entire life just by mentally thinking about the things that you can do. And I bring this book up to say the point to what you're asking is what advice is: learn how to train your mind. And I used to think it was so silly when philosophers or great men of words and women of words would come on and talk and say, the mind is a terrible thing to waste and train your minds. Like, we always knew that. Like, okay, but your mind is your biggest opponent. It's the truth. That's really where Satan lives and the enemy is. It's because you can convince yourself out of a lot of things. You can really talk yourself out of some moves that you should have made because the lie is here. And if you don't have the will to train your mind, you'll get in positions where you're supposed to be great, but your mental conditioning hasn't been proper and you're falling apart. And if I hadn't trained my mind, that book helped me understand the true power of meditation. And I was able to go some places that I couldn't even, sharing sounds crazy. That's why I say it only has to be in practice, practically. I'm giving the gems that I have. And that's what I would say. Train your mind and cleanse your heart. It's not enough to just be strong here if your intention and the way you do things is still not good. Oh, it's so much cruelty in the world. It's corrupt. And that shouldn't steer you away from doing the right thing, because you still get blessed regardless on how cruel the world is. Ever since I gave my life over to doing the right thing, if my heart doesn't feel joy from it, it's not right. And that's not to say and be frivolous. See, I think sometimes we tie money to our heart, and money is attached to our heart. That's one of the biggest heartstrings that's there. But I'm talking about caring for others and sharing a word. Oh, I thought about him today. I'm going to actually send him just a small note.
Yeah.
I give so much money, and not that I'm balling. I'm barely making money off the company. If we're gonna keep it real, right now we're not generating no money. But what I am saying is we will be generating money and we will be millionaires. But I'm still practicing principles of being a millionaire now. Like I give when the Lord tells me to give, because this book talks about money being a currency. Money is current, and so when you give, it has to come back. Mm-hmm. So when the Lord tells me to give, I'll be like, okay, let me give this money to. I actually need this, Lord, but I always get blessed. And I hope I'm not trying to do too much on this show, but I'm just trying to give people some small things that really, really, when people look at a CEO or someone running a company and say, how did you do it? How did you get there? This is how. Mm-hmm. There is no one gave me a lump sum of money. No one said, hey, come work here and be a steward over a company. And essentially he did, but I knew JoJo before the company was here. He knew my work ethic. He knew my vision. He knew my spirit. And so he felt confident enough to approach me. It wasn't just through, and so I'm just trying to give some tools that really changed my life that I didn't hear and I heard in church, but didn't really articulate in practice. No. I'm just trying to give practice. And I would just say, train your mind and cleanse your heart. Because it's not enough to be smart and to be pure here and not pure here. Because everything's tied to how you care for people. Mm-hmm. Really.
No, I love that, man. And I don't feel like you're doing too much. I think, honestly, if it wasn't for the platform, like I probably would let it go for however long I want to talk. But so, we're just starting out. But no, I really appreciate you. I'm gonna wrap it up, but I do want everybody to show EarleyBird some love. I did tag it in the show
and notes. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I'm excited for what you bring out because I think you've done a great pitch. I think it's gonna be dope, and I truly believe in you. So I think that's enough right there.
Man, thank you. And listen, please do me a favor, because sometimes I get into the spirit and get to rambling. Yeah. And I don't know really what I said. So if you could do me a favor and cut out the portion of my company that I laid out. Because that was fire, and I want to use that and write that down.
No, I got some fire clips,
I keep it real. That's what I'm saying. I keep it real. Listen, I
can edit a little bit too. You know what I'm saying?
You feel me? You feel me?
But now I'm really appreciate you for real, bro. First episode of the year, we came out strong.
Thank you. Listen, no, Paul. Seriously, I'm so honored that you allow me to come and be on this show because I asked God. I was like, God, give me the strength to be more public. Because I don't really like doing this. Like for me, I used to feel like it was boastful and a bit, but I want people to know how the goodness of Jesus works. Mm-hmm. And this is the only way I'm able to be at this point and where EarleyBird's going to go. I want people to know he was really on live saying that a year or so ago. Because that's the only way I'm getting to where I need to go. It's not through my own strength of just being a CEO. Like he worked hard. I did work hard and I studied and I still study and I'm always improving myself. Mm-hmm. But that's how you really get blessed is when you improve yourself. And he's like, okay, he's where he needs to be. Go ahead and give him this company. Go ahead and give him this $1 million deal. Go ahead because you can steward it properly.
No, we need it.
Why would he give it to you if you can't handle it?
Nah, we need it.
You're gonna fumble the bag. We always talk about that. Come on now.
Nah. No, I love it, bro.
Don't fumble God's bag. So
yeah, bro.
I will be back, man. I'm honored that you considered me a guest. Really, I thank you. I thank you for your gift, and I thank you for this platform because I think you're going to change lives as well. Yeah. So I'm honored, man. And I will forever be to kick off the year. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
And I'm gonna let you go. Y'all show some love, drop some Ponymojis, and I'm gonna wrap it up with the rest of the gang, bro. Appreciate you. Hey y'all, hope y'all enjoyed that episode. I definitely did. I think one of my favorite episodes so far. And once again, I know it went a little long. There might have been some technical difficulties, but I think it was definitely well deserved. I just want to use this to thank you guys for tuning in all the way in. Thank you for welcoming the new year with some new Paul and Pals content. For any new listeners, new watchers, I do hope that you guys are willing to subscribe. We have a lot where that came from. So the best way to watch live is to follow on Instagram at Paul and Pals. If you guys want to tune in with me on socials, you can follow me at Ponyboy Paul. And I just also want to announce that I actually just started a newsletter to accompany the podcast. And the goal of this is because I actually want to start really tracking, who the true Paul and Pals fans are. And for the people that aren't able to really be on social media, don't have the time to maybe watch a 2-hour-long video or listen to a 2-hour-long podcast, I wanted to provide a space where I kind of break down what I learned from that episode with some quotes, some clips, and just kind of make it easier to consume. So if you guys are interested in that and you don't mind me being in your email inbox every other Monday, look in the link in bio with the link tree to click on the subscribe to the newsletter link. and that will take you right there. Easy setup, and there you go. So once again, thank you guys for joining, and just as a reminder, remember to stay creative. Peace.